Welcome back to Hey Kentucky. Last night I talked about the COVID-19 outbreak with a woman who grew up in Somerset and is now an associate professor of microbiology and immunology at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Tonight, the conversation continues with Dr. Julie Fischer. Julie, I know a lot of people are afraid, not just of the virus, but the economic impact this is having on the nation and in small communities and in families, where they're going to get food. You know, it always seems to run out on a daily basis, some of the basic necessities. And that has people worried that maybe too many steps have been taken. But do you think because so many people can be asymptomatic, and those people can then pass it on to someone who may really have disastrous consequences when they contract the virus? That's the reason that we're being reined in so much at this point?
That's exactly it. The challenge is that because this virus is brand new, basically everybody on Earth is susceptible. None of us have pre-existing immunity. So for those people who are in lower risk groups, who are younger and otherwise healthy, they themselves may not be at high risk of developing severe disease, although we're certainly seeing young people become ill. But the people in those very high risk groups, the older people and those with pre-existing conditions, those are the people who are at higher risk of not only severe disease, but death. We are all susceptible, and we don't have any of the technical tools that we're used to relying on, like vaccines or effective antiviral treatments. So right now, the only tool that we have are these old-fashioned social distancing tools and the very practical tools of public health, isolating people who are sick, quarantining the people who have been exposed to people who are sick and who are potentially infected themselves, and then the rest of us keeping our distance so that if we are infected and don't know, we are at least not transmitting the virus to others who may be in contact with those people at very high risk. There is no question that these measures are incredibly disruptive to our economies, to our livelihoods, to our lives, but we're taking them on to protect the people who are least able to resist severe disease should they become infected. Because right now we just don't know if we are carrying the virus, if any of us might be carrying the virus without severe symptoms.
How long does it take for a vaccine to get thoroughly tested, thoroughly go through clinical trials, and finally get into people's systems?
So the fastest we can really get a new vaccine through trials and approved as safe and begin administering to the public is about 12 months. Usually we say 12 to 18 months, but there has been a really heroic effort going on early in this pandemic to try to get vaccine candidates advanced and begin those first stages of testing, where they go into healthy volunteers and make sure that they don't cause any side effects and that there is some evidence that they will be effective. Then they go into larger groups of volunteers to make sure that they elicit what we call correlates of immunity. That is, does it look like they're really going to work? And then a final stage where they go into an even larger group of volunteers to make sure that they actually do protect against disease. So unfortunately, you really just can't speed those steps up. You have to vaccinate people, and it takes their immune systems time to react so that we can make sure that the vaccines are safe and effective before they go into large groups of people.
And finally, do you have some idea when we may know when the curve is being flattened or when we're on the downward slope and things can maybe start resuming back to normal?
I would so love to tell you that there is a clear date when that's going to happen. But right now, I think anyone who conjectures about when is it's a best guess estimate. But in terms of how will we know? We'll know when every new case that we see can be tied back to a specific previous case, that we know where each new cluster of cases has originated. And we'll know when we start seeing that the number of new cases is dropping and can be, again, we can clearly tie it back and say, this case came from this infected person or this event, and we know where it started. Until then, when cases are appearing and people just don't know when they were exposed, then we know it's being transmitted at the community level in ways that are difficult to track. And we'll know when we get good diagnostic testing in place that lets people test and see if they were previously infected. Those are called serology tests, and they're coming online. They're just not available quite yet.
Thank you so much to Dr. Julie Fischer for her insight. Still ahead on Hey Kentucky, a game of fill in the blank. We will cover several more topics, including a homegrown 2021 Yahtzee for UK football. Don't go away.